It wasn't a big deal.
A father showing their minor daughter a pornographic video, that's a big deal. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Well, now, Kim says that she was only 7 years old when her innocence was robbed and her life was changed forever. She says she went from a happy little girl to living a secret nightmare. A nightmare that she says started with a trip to the basement with her father and turned into 7 years of unthinkable sexual abuse. Take a look.
My father's a monster. He's a pedophile and he's a danger to children. My father started molesting me when I was 7 years old. He started grooming me, teaching me what to be, what he wanted me to be. One time I was alone with my father in the basement and he showed me what men's privates look like. It started slow and then it got up to the point it was happening every week. He then taught me how to perform sexual acts. The sexual abuse usually happened in the basement. As I walked down the stairs, the dread piled up in my chest, knowing what was waiting for me. It became like a chore. We watched a porn video together, and then he asked me to do a strip dance for him. My father had me start to engage in sexual behavior with him. I was very conflicted between the love of having a father and the pain of having to help him all the time with things I didn't like. The worst abuse was when my father did a horrible and terrifying thing to me. I laid there with my face covered with a blanket hiding. It was absolutely disgusting and humiliating. All I could do was close my eyes and imagine I was somewhere else, playing in the woods, thinking about rainbows and happy things. I cuddled with my cat to help comfort me. When I was 14, I finally got the courage to come forward and tell my mother. And my father was later sent to prison. After he went to prison, I felt guilty about that because he was my father, and it was hard to acknowledge that it was his actions that put him there and not my telling. I do not feel that justice was served because he does not fully own up to what he's done. He believes since he never took my virginity, he'd never done anything wrong. I do not believe my father should have ever been released for what he did.
Well, Kim's father, Bob, was convicted of sexual assault and served 4 years in jail. Yet Kim says he actually blames her for what he calls their consensual sexual relationship. Take a look.
My father has the nerve to blame me for the abuse that I had as a child. The last time I spoke to my father was 3 years ago, and he said that it was all my fault and all my idea. I lured him in sexually. We were in it together, and that everything that happened was consensual. That is absolutely ridiculous. I was just a child when he started all of this. I wasn't old enough to understand what was happening. I wasn't old enough to consent to those type of things. I never wanted to do any of those things that we did. The sexual abuse that I experienced as a child has deeply affected my entire life. I used to use sex as a coping method for depression. It hurt my relationships, and it gave me a distorted view of what a relationship with a man should have been. I am still haunted by the abuse that I had as a child. There isn't anything he could ever say to me to excuse what he's done and all that I've had to go through because of him. The fact that my father continues to blame me is just to try to justify his actions. My father is mentally ill.
Well, Kim, I'm glad to meet you. How do you feel about bringing all this into focus right now and talking about it, and why do you want to do it?
I've never actually verbally told my father how I feel or what I went through. And feel like in a way I've still kept everything kind of bottled up because of that. And then I still have some blame because some of the things that happened were my idea, and I didn't realize that it was because that's what I was being taught, you know?
Okay, but are you still confused about that? Are you still conflicted about that at some level?
At some level, I think so, yes.
Okay.
A little.
So, all right, so tell me, how old were you when this started?
7 years old.
It began by him saying, come down to the basement.
Well, I usually followed him because I like to help out, you know.
Okay.
And we went down to put wood in the stove, and he started a conversation. Do you have any questions about puberty? You're going to be a woman soon. And I thought I knew everything. And with some thought, I asked what a male's genitalia looks like.
Right.
And he showed me his, and I was, you know, shocked. And then he asked me if I wanted to touch it, and I didn't. But he says it's normal, you know, we're all born naked, go ahead, it's not gonna bite you. So I did. That's how it started.
And so this goes on it started a pattern every couple of days.
And then he started teaching me how to perform sexual acts. And then he started telling me that we were sinning, we were committing adultery, and that I needed to stop him and say no. But when I tried to, that didn't usually last long, because then he'd feel really, like he'd show, you know, people have expressions, and he would express that he was disappointed. Sometimes, you know, if I said, no, we are sinning, then we wouldn't do it that night, but then the next night, oh, come on, you know, it's normal. We're all born naked, it's natural. Clothes aren't natural.
This involved getting undressed, getting naked, touching, striptease type dancing. You watched porno with him. It involved him teaching you how to perform sexual acts, going both ways, right? And did he tell you that it was okay to talk about this with your friends or talk about it in school? What did he say about that?
He says, you can't tell people, because if you tell anyone, I'll go to jail. They won't understand. You know, he's my dad and I loved him, and I didn't want bad things to happen to him. And it always felt like the ball was in my court because he always told me I could say no.
Okay, so now looking back, that tells you he knew this was wrong, correct?
Right.
I mean, he knew the difference between right and wrong. It wasn't that he was off in Never Never Land. He knew this was right and wrong. He said, you cannot tell. This is a sin. We're committing adultery. If you tell other people, I'll go to jail. So he's saying, I know it's wrong, I know it's wrong, I know it's wrong, I know it's wrong.
But on the other hand, he also kept telling me it's okay because we're born naked, you know, and I'm your father, and it's just between you and me. We're not hurting anybody, you know. He kept telling me we're not hurting anybody. In reality, you know, we were hurting ourselves, mostly me.
There was a time that you said was the worst time of all, when he was actually doing some things to you that you said it was just horrible. You cuddled your cat. You took your mind away somewhere else. Tell me about your feelings at that point.
Well, he had been asking me for over a month if I was willing, and I kept telling him I didn't want to, it didn't sound fun. And he kept telling me, oh, you'll love it. He has a different voice, but you know, I can still hear it in my head. Oh, you'll love it, you'll love it. Oh, come on. So after a while, I said, okay. It was just the two of us in the house, and we went into his room, and I laid on the bed, and I covered my upper half with a blanket, and the cat was in there sleeping, and I was holding on to him, and I was trying to think of other things, because it was disturbing, and it was gross, and I just felt dirty.
Where was your mother at this point?
I think she was at work.
Of course, he says that you seduced him, that you lured him sexually.
That's ridiculous.
Well, Kim's father is here. He's here, and we're going to meet him later. But first, Kim says that she hated what her father made her do, yet for some reason, she never wanted to disappoint him. That confounds her. I want to talk about this when we come back after the break. We're going to meet him later, but I want to talk about this some more. I'm going to tell you why. There are a lot of children out there right now that sadly are caught in similar situations. You may have been a child that was in this situation. You may have open wounds about this. There may be people in this audience right here today that still have open wounds about this. We have to clear this up. There has to be great clarity about where responsibility lies in these matters. We're going to talk about that after the break.
When my father wanted me to engage in sexual behavior, he would have a signal, which was a tip-off to me to go down to the basement with him. Children should never have to keep the kinds of secrets that I was forced to keep.
And later,
Little girls don't think about striptease unless they're taught it.
I didn't teach you striptease.
The things I came up with were things that you inspired.
how can you say it's consensual?
It wasn't against her will. She had a choice. It wasn't forced on her.
It wasn't forced on her. She went along to seek the approval of her father.
Thursday on an all-new Dr. Phil.
My sister has had 3 exorcisms.
A 10-year-old mystery.
She had 2 demons who would attack her.
You say Emily would stab you, and then Charlie cuts out your tongue.
Is it possession?
If someone puts holy water on me, my skin is on fire.
Or something else beyond her control? That's Thursday.
My father guilted me into doing sexual acts. To please him, I would make up different games. We would take the bouncy ball and hide it somewhere on our body, and the other person would feel around to try to find it. My father used to tell me we were committing adultery, and he made it sound like I could always say no. But then when I told him I didn't want to do any of these things, he got upset. His demeanor and tone of voice used to always show me how disappointed he was. I just wanted to make my father happy.
Now, I want you to imagine being 7 years old. You don't know anything about sexuality. You don't know anything about boundaries. What you know is that your mother and father are there to protect you. And all of a sudden, the man that is supposed to protect you becomes the man you need protecting from. Well, that's exactly what Kim says happened to her. Now, to make matters worse, Kim says her father told her that they both committed adultery, and so in order to avoid punishment, she had to keep quiet and not tell anyone their sick little secret.
The abuse I endured by my father was a secret, and I felt I had no choice but to keep quiet about it. He said that we were born naked and everything we did was perfectly natural, and that Mom wasn't understanding and she wouldn't approve. My father told me if I ever told on him, he'd go to jail. I still loved him. He was my dad, and I didn't want anything bad to happen to him. When my father wanted me to engage in sexual behavior with him, he would have a signal. He'd say I have to go put wood in the stove, which was a tip-off to me to go down to the basement with him. If people were around, he'd go down into the basement, take a broom handle, and hit the floorboards, which was the floor to my room. That was my signal to come down to the basement. One time, my mom went to Barbados. My father showed me scary movies, knowing that I would be terrified and that I'd sleep in the bed with him. Once I was in bed with him, he'd like me to perform sexual activities with him. It was an awful nightmare. There was no one around to help me. I was trapped there. I was trained so well, I never even thought of telling anyone. Children should never have to keep the kinds of secrets that I was forced to keep. My innocence was taken away from me.
Now, when this was going on, your mother, you say, was at work a lot of the time. Do you believe she didn't know any of this?
I do. Because she was so shocked when I did tell her. A lot of times she was home, but it was in the basement, and her knees are so bad she couldn't go down the stairs.
You didn't think at any time your mother was clued in on this?
No.
When he talked about this, he said because he didn't, quote, take your virginity, that he didn't do anything wrong.
Right. And because he always let me say no. But that never, of course, lasted. But he made it seem like if I could have just stuck with it, if I could have just kept saying no, that it would have ended.
And therefore, it's your fault.
Right.
That's his theory about it being consensual.
Yeah. In the end, when I did tell, I told on him so he could go to heaven, so that he could be away from me and stop sinning. Because we were going to church all the time, and they kept telling us what hell was like and how awful it was, and I just didn't want him to have to go through that. I thought that jail sounded bad, but it didn't sound as bad as hell. So that's why I actually did tell in the end.
But as you sit here today, a part of you still says, if I hadn't gone down the stairs, if I had stuck with not saying, okay, if I had just been stronger in my resolve, then maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. It seems like no matter what I did, I wasn't doing the right thing.
You know, I'm seldom at a loss for words, but I can't think of words big enough, clear enough, strong enough to impress upon you how strongly I feel that you have absolutely zero, I mean zero responsibility for what happened to you as a child. You were not equipped to deal with this. You were not equipped to understand the magnitude of the gravity of it. You were not equipped to understand the emotional leverage and extortion and manipulation that was being put upon you. You had absolutely zero responsibility for what happened to you as a child.
I wanted to make him happy, so I came up with like games and things to play.
Do you feel guilty about that?
He blames me still, so it's hard to let go of the blame.
You want to face this man to talk about this.
I feel like I need to, because he's been reaching out to me.
And later, you said, how is this 100% my fault when half of what we did was her idea?
Yeah. She's got a great imagination.
You said when we first started talking that you have mixed feelings about it because some of the ideas were yours.
Yeah, and I had never actually said them out loud until taking interviews for this show. You know, like, I wanted to make him happy, so I came up with like games and things to play.
Because you thought of some of this, do you feel guilty about that?
To some extent, I think it's hard to let go of, because he blames me still, so it's hard to let go of the blame, even though I know that I was 7, and looking at 7-year-olds, I realize that they're not guilty, but it was me, and I always feel like I'm more responsible than anyone else. Like, it's my responsibility.
But you understand, a 7-year-old that's looking at their father that knows nothing other than what he has said, that your focus is, I want acceptance, I want him to be happy, and he's communicating to me that he's unhappy, that he's disappointed, and I'm responsible for that, so I'm going to try to find some way to make him happy, right, so I feel loved and accepted. That's manipulation on his part, right?
It is, yes.
And you're 7.
Yeah.
If there's a 7-year-old child watching right now, sitting next to her mother, and she has, like a lot of you had when they came home, and your mother says, shh, Dr. Philstone, don't say anything. I've had that complaint a million times. And that child is sitting there listening to this saying, I've been down those basement stairs. My father, uncle, grandfather, family friend is doing the same thing, and they're feeling guilty. What do you say to that 7-year-old that's sitting there watching this right now?
To get help, and it's not your fault.
Well, then show yourself the same consideration. All right, Kim has not faced her father in 3 years. And I have to ask you at this point, because I know that you've seen him occasionally here or there, but I am very reluctant to put a victim in the same space with their abuser. And I only do that with your permission. I do that because you have requested this, correct?
Yeah.
You want to face this man. You want to vent this. You want to talk about this, correct?
I feel like I need to because he's been reaching out to me. See, 3 years ago, I had reached out to him to see if he was sorry, to see if he was remorseful, to see if I had a father inside. And we had a few meetings, and he seemed exactly the same as before, but he wasn't making any passes. He wasn't doing anything, you know, creepy. And then one day he had low sugar, and he said some very awful things about what happened before, as if they were fine. The only thing I could say was that's inappropriate, and then I cut ties with him. He went to my boyfriend at work and told him he needed to say goodbye. My boyfriend only told me because he looked like he was gonna cry, and I thought, well, what if he's dying? You know, what if this is it? So I called him, and he said he wanted to share his side. He wanted me to be the only one who knows him, and he wanted to hear my side, which was the first I had heard he wanted to hear my side of things. So I wrote him a letter, and he started screaming at me and blaming me for everything. I mean, it started off as a normal conversation, but it ended with screaming and yelling and telling me that he's repented by going to jail, he's asked for forgiveness, he's going to heaven, and I'll get mine. And the last thing I said was, you should have stayed in jail, and I hung up. And that was 3 years ago, and then my sister wrote a book about her life, and of course I was very supportive and excited. I was the first one there, so I was near the front. I didn't see him come in. And he was there to give me home videos. He was asked to leave. Like, if he's going to be reaching out, this has to be dealt with. And I just don't feel like I'm strong enough to do it on my own, to be able to tell him that he hurt me, that he was abusive, that this needs to stop.
So you want to do that today, but you want to do it with me here.
Right.
Well, coming up next, Bob is here and says he wants Kim to stop playing, and I quote, Miss Innocent, and finally admit she enjoyed, initiated, and encouraged what he called their sexual relationship. We're going to add him to the conversation after the break.
I never forced Kim to do sexual things. Most of the ideas came from Kim, the stripteases, taking her clothes off in front of me. Her curiosity led to my excitement. So how is that 100% my fault?
Kim says from the age of 7 to 14, she was forced into the basement, abused by her father almost daily. Now, Bob admits being sexual with his daughter, but says he's tired of being painted as a monster for something he insists was consensual.
Kim thinks that she didn't have a part in what happened between us at all, that she didn't participate willingly. Our sexual relationship was consensual. I never forced Kim to do anything against Kim's will. She always had the choice. Most of the ideas came from Kim. She's got an awesome imagination. She was the one that did the stripteases. She was the one that was always taking her clothes off in front of me. I did not ask her to do those things. They just happened spontaneously. Her curiosity led to my excitement. So how is that 100% my fault? The more we continued, the better it felt, and we both were enjoying it. When I told Kim this was wrong, she says, yeah, I know. There was a green light. Outside of what Kim and I were doing, intimacy with Kim's mom was impossible. She was overweight by 300 pounds. I was really stressed out. My sexual relationship with Kim wasn't right in the eyes of the law, but it carried on for 3 years and stopped. When I was charged and convicted of sexual assault, it was called sexual assault, but there was no physical harm brought on Kim. I know that I was the adult and the responsibility was mine, but I just don't like the fact that Kim plays totally innocent of the whole thing, when in fact half the stuff we did was her idea.
Well, for the first time in 3 years, Kim will face her father. This is her request. As I say, I'm loath to put victims and perpetrators in this kind of situation together, but here it has been requested. We've talked about it. She feels like she needs to do this for clarity purposes. So, Bob, why don't you come out and join us? We'll have a seat right here if you would. Bob, we've been talking about the history that led up to you being convicted and put in jail. Kim has told us a lot of what happened. Your position on this is not that it didn't happen, but just who's responsible for it happening, correct?
Oh, I'm responsible for it. I'm the adult. It all falls on me.
Well, what is your point about her playing Little Miss Innocent then? Your words, not mine. Playing Little Miss Innocent.
Well, when I asked her about the bedroom incident, the underwear and everything, she totally denied it. So I had to assume that she was denying everything. But, you know, there was parts played on both sides.
What bedroom incident are you talking about?
When she got her toe hung up in my underwear and pulled my underwear down and jumped under the sheets to see what was there.
Well, you said, how is this 100% my fault when half of what we did was her idea?
That's true. I mean, she's got a great imagination. I mean, you know, half the stuff we did was her idea, but nothing was forced on her.
You went into the basement with her on a regular basis, correct? The two of you went into the basement on a regular basis? And sexual activity took place down there, correct?
A couple of times, yeah. 2 or 3 times, I think.
I remember it happening a lot more than 2 or 3 times. It was happening all the time. I mean, you'd go downstairs, you'd take the broom by the wood stove and you'd thump on the floorboards for me to come down.
I'd thump on the floorboards and you would thump back and you'd run from room to room seeing if I could catch up with you, and I'd bang the floor as soon as you banged it.
Well, that may have been a game that happened later, but that meant to come downstairs.
Well, this went on for 7 years, right?
No.
From 7 to 14?
No.
How long did it go on?
12 to 15.
Okay, so you say it was 3 or 4 years, not 7 years.
It's 3 years, yeah.
I was 14 when I told, so it couldn't have been until I was 15. You weren't around when I was 15.
That's what I heard from CPS. You told them that you didn't know right from wrong.
Yeah, that's what you taught me.
No, when the second or third time we did this, I said, you know what we're doing is wrong. And you said, yeah, I know.
That's because you had told me that. You told me we were sinning. You told me we were committing adultery. I didn't even know what that word meant until you told me.
What are you doing showing your daughter a porn video?
It wasn't a big deal.
Anytime a father is showing their minor daughter a pornographic video, that's a big deal.
Thursday on an all-new Dr. Phil.
My sister has had 3 exorcisms.
A 10-year-old mystery.
She had 2 demons who would attack her.
You say Emily would stab you, and then Charlie cuts out your tongue.
Is it possession?
If someone puts holy water on me, my skin is on fire.
Or something else beyond her control. That's Thursday.
Are you denying now that you put your hands on your daughter in a sexual way?
No.
So you do admit that?
Oh, yeah.
On multiple occasions? Mm-hmm. And that you had her put her hands on you in a sexual way?
Probably, yeah. I mean...
Well, I just want to know what you admit and what you don't. I mean, I know what you were convicted of, so I'm just...
Yeah.
Are you...
I'm not trying to put the blame on Kim, not at all. I don't want any more hurt. I don't want to live in the past. It's too damn hurtful.
Well, you say that, but you said, and I quote, Kim started everything. She was 12 years old and curious.
That's true. So
if you're the adult responsible for it, then how are you saying Kim started everything? This was consensual. We did this together. This wasn't an assault. We did this consensually.
It wasn't against her will, and it did start in the bedroom with the underwear thing. And all I'm saying, she had a choice. One time she said she wanted to stop, and I said, okay. And a couple weeks or so went by, and she told me she fell off the wagon.
She fell off the wagon, so she wanted to stop, but then wanted to start back up?
Yeah.
Did you know it was wrong?
Oh, yes, I did.
So you did it knowing it was wrong?
Yeah.
And do you know that a child does not have the capacity to give consent?
I know that.
So how can you say it's consensual? If a child doesn't have the capacity to give consent, then how can it be consensual?
Because it wasn't forced on her. She always had the choice.
It wasn't forced on her. You say that because you manipulated her, and she went along with trying to seek the approval of her father. This isn't a matter of if she became curious. Your duty as a father is not to elicit, maintain, or allow this to happen under any circumstances. Not to say, well, after a while it started feeling really good and she was going along with it, so what's the harm?
And where do you think the curiosity came from? It wasn't... Little girls don't think about strip teasing. Little girls don't think about doing things like that unless they're taught it.
I didn't teach you striptease. You showed me. You were doing it in front of me.
You showed me porn videos.
One.
Little girls don't just naturally do stuff like that. The things I came up with were things that you inspired.
What are you doing showing your daughter a porn video?
It wasn't a big deal. I mean...
What wasn't a big deal?
A porn video.
Anytime a father is showing their minor daughter a pornographic video, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. It's inappropriate and it's criminal. How can you say it's not a big deal?
It wasn't at the time. At the time, I didn't care. I didn't care if somebody walked in the room, put a bullet in my head. That's where I was coming from at the time. I just felt like I didn't exist.
Uh-huh. So why drag her down with you?
Because I didn't care.
If you're in this moral squalor, why drag an innocent child down there with you and then blame her for it?
I'm not blaming her.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you said she always had a choice. Half of this was her idea. You're sick of her playing totally Miss Innocent.
I think that was referring to Jessica.
Actually, no, but that wouldn't make it any better.
No.
It's still a daughter. Well, next, Bob says he was being publicly outed and placed on the sex offender registry, and that's not only unfair, but unnecessary, because he didn't molest anyone. We'll talk about that after the break. Do you have a story only I can help solve? Go to drphil.com and click Be on the Show or text Phil to 88500. You're going to be in the Los Angeles area and want to watch a live taping of the Dr. Phil Show? Call 323-461-PHIL or visit drphil.com. Tickets are free, and I hope to see you soon.
Once I got out of jail, I was put on a sex offender registry. I can't use the internet. I can't go to the library. Even when I do my groceries, they're giving me problems over that because there's kids there. So where can I go where there's no kids? Society's been tough on me. I think the registry is totally unfair because it throws a roadblock for making things better for myself. It's the worst thing that can be done to a person. By the time I'm off the registry, I'll probably be dead.
Well, although Bob pled guilty to sexual assault with a victim under 16 years old and lewd and lascivious conduct with a child, he says being forced to register as a sex offender is just simply unfair.
The only thing unfair about it is they put your name, your picture, and your address. So anybody who wants to get revenge knows exactly where to find me. That's the only thing that's unfair about it.
Yeah. Well, anyone that wants to get revenge and take something out on you in a vigilante manner, I do not endorse. I absolutely do not endorse that. And I really say to you, in his world, in his place, wherever he lives, wherever he inhabits, if that's on your mind, you need to get that out of your mind because you're going to wind up going to jail. If you aggress against this individual, there is a system. That's what the system is for. Now, Bob is on the registry because he was convicted of 2 counts. Count 1 was sexual assault with a victim under 16 years of age. Count 2 was lewd and lascivious conduct with a child. And so if you know that, and that is germane to you and your family, then you can take whatever protective measures you feel are appropriate. You say that registry is the worst thing that you can do to a person who's starting over. Well, what do you think is appropriate for a father that has repeatedly molested their daughter?
I got 7 to 15 years. I had 4 years to serve, and I deserved it. I deserved what I got, and I didn't argue the fact.
So you feel like you've paid your debt to society?
Oh, I'm still paying it.
By going to prison, and you're still paying it by being on the registry, is your thought?
No, because society doesn't forget. I can't get a job anywhere. I just can't walk into a job. I can't walk into a decent apartment building and get an apartment. I'm living in a dump now because they're the only ones that'll rent to me. And like I say, society don't let you forget.
Well, you say, and again, I quote here, that you don't know how you were convicted of sexual assault when there was no physical harm, and that Kim is lying to herself and in denial about her role. You say she initiated 50% of their sexual interaction and had, quote, all the ideas. That she enjoyed what they did just as much as you did. And it started when she pulled down your pants, being a curious child.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I know what I did was wrong. I know that. I should, in a normal family, a father would take care of their kids and be there for them and be at their school plays, but it wasn't a normal family.
And later, his job as a father was to protect you, not prey upon you. Why are you still telling her this was her fault?
I just want her to admit that there was 2 of us.
There were 2 of you, a perpetrator and a victim. Want to know what's coming up on Dr. Phil? Visit our website and subscribe to our email newsletter. You'll get weekly updates, life strategies, and exclusive video that you won't find anywhere else.
Plus, on drphil.com, you can see sneak previews of upcoming shows. Log on today.
Well, we have run out of time for today, but we have so much more to cover. And I mean, the question is, will Bob ever take accountability for what he did to Kim? And will Kim ever get closure that she wants? Will she ever get the clarity in this relationship that she wants? And tomorrow, we're going to meet another one of Bob's alleged victims, his stepdaughter, Jessica. Take a look.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
His job was to protect you, not prey upon you. Why are you telling her this was her fault?
I want her to admit there was two of us.
There were two of you. She was the victim, you were the perpetrator.
I feel like there are more victims out there.
Did he abuse his other daughter as well?
He would expose himself to me, have me touch him.
You were in the shower together.
Because you jumped in the shower. That was your idea, not mine.
He would grope me when I'd walk by.
None of that happened. You can't prove it.
I think I can prove it.
That's tomorrow.
Well, stay tuned, because believe me, you do not want to miss what's coming up, because this gets more layered, it gets more complex, and I think there are a lot of teachable moments in what's coming up tomorrow. Plus, 4 of Kim and Jessica's childhood friends say they witnessed Bob's crude, vulgar, and sexually inappropriate behavior. We're going to hear what they have to say as well. Don't forget to log on to drphil.com and see previews of upcoming episodes. You can always find me on Facebook and Twitter and share your thoughts. We'll see you tomorrow.